Getting mine, ain't no rush, this perfection coming up. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. In the end, it's gonna be us. Don't need a spotlight on this grind, I run it up. Been the cut, gotta eat, skip the sleep. Till the work done, I be up. I'm getting mine, ain't no rush, this perfection coming up. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. In the end, it's gonna be us. Don't need a spotlight on this grind, I run it up. Been the cut, gotta eat, skip the sleep. Till the work done, I be up. Ain't trying to be for.
What's going on, world? It's your man Cleveland home to be professional. Showtime if you nasty. Welcome back to the Crosscast. Man, so today I drew this inspiration off of watching LeBron's son play basketball, honestly. Now, quick note, when I do these things, most of these episodes and topics I come up with, they start with one little thing and then I just kind of snowball off of it and turn it into something else. So try to ride with me. I'm gonna try to walk y'all through this process. Okay, so one day I'm sitting in the living room here, and for whatever reason, I was watching YouTube. I was checking out some shit on YouTube, and LeBron's son had popped up. So I know he's getting a little older now, so I'm like, hey, let me check him out, see what he's doing. You know, it was not too long of a video, so I'm like, yeah, I'll check him out. Now, that's from this current basketball season. I found out more about him after that, but let me go ahead and get this out. So I'm watching, and, you know, I'm seeing he's doing a lot of passing. As a person who's just like, oh, I'm just a fan of basketball. I know LeBron's like dominant. He ball dominant. He has the ball in his hand a lot. He's running the show. And I'm looking at his son play, and I wasn't catching that from that game, you know. And I noticed like I was kind of being hard on him. Like, damn, man, he must not got the juice like that. Blah 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 blah. You know, this is what I'm thinking. And that kind of led me to thinking about, like, is this a fair judgment I'm passing right now? It's not like I've been watching him grow up, you know, watching him play. So I don't know this scenario. Now, I'm looking at it. So, of course, I did go research and look up a little more of him. His game was not as bad as I was thinking that day. I mean, it wasn't like he had a terrible game. It was just like he was more role players. But also I'm thinking, like, imagine if your dad is arguably the greatest to ever do something. You know, you kind of get an unfair shake at it. Where it's like, if my dad's arguably the greatest ever, if I don't make the league, people are looking like this kid's a fucking failure. It's like, you could go play overseas or whatever, you know, but it's like, that's a big shadow to walk in. Those are huge shoes to fill. So then I start thinking even more, of course. I'm thinking, like, Michael Jordan is arguably the best to ever play basketball. Why? What happened to his sons? You know, it's like, if my dad's the best, like, you would think he would drop me a couple jewels that I would be able to pick up and at least be decent. But also, you got to think the pressure that these kids were probably under to be good at basketball. They probably fucking hated the game. like everybody's just looking at you like, your dad's Jordan. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. Coaches probably giving them unfair shots at shit, you know, because it's like, you're Jordan's son, you're LeBron's son. You're not forced to work as hard. Because I was thinking, like, okay, you run into a Steph Curry. Now, his father was Dell Curry. Well, is Dell Curry. And he was never considered, like, the best player. He was considered a good player. But he was never, like, in the argument for best player in the league at any point in time or best player ever. But then you end up with this son who's like ridiculously good. And that made me think, like, how does that happen? You kind of playing with a chip, though, because you feel like I could be up here with the best of them. But really, Steph went to like a school nobody really was looking for until he went there. The paths were different. So then once I got to that point, I even looked at Carmelo's son just to see, like, to do the comparison. So I did the comparison of Michael Jordan's son versus Dell Curry's sons, and then LeBron's son versus Carmelo's son. Carmelo's son could ball, man. That young kid, he balled. But so that led me to, okay, it's not fair to judge these kids off of who their father is to pick what to expect from them. But who the fuck cares what I think about that? People are still going to do it because that's just how we are. That's just how people are. And then, bingo, led me to the topic. The topic, survival of the fittest. Because in these situations, the fittest of these children will survive in that arena. And then even in life, this survival of the fittest is really a life philosophy. But you can use it to break down smaller things that are less important than life, like basketball. But so I was basically looking at it like, okay, survival of the fittest. Even since I was using the basketball reference, what would make these kids the fittest? Who would be the fittest in a given situation? And that led me to a point about it. When we talk about survival of the fittest is definitely determined by the situation or your environment. Whatever your environment is. Like, okay, we could say people back when the bubonic plague was hitting, survival of the fittest were the people with the better immune systems. Like, these people are fucking dying because they got this plague that their bodies can't handle, and it's just wiping out a bunch of people. Or even more recent, with the coronavirus, there are people who could catch it and got over it and were good to go. You got people who not even catching it, and then you got some people who catch it and that shit takes them out. Survival of the fittest. Like, and survival of the fittest. That's something that comes from a guy named Charles Darwin. He came up with that whole theory of natural selection. Now, natural selection is, to put it simply, inheritable traits that someone or something can get that makes them more equipped to survive in a given environment or situation. So a lot of people like to say, like, survival of the fittest, big, strong. That is usually a very good trait. That does kind of assist because, worst come to worst, some caveman shit. If these people over here eating, I can come take their food because I'm bigger and stronger. So, yeah, but it's not limited to that. When you think of survival of the fittest, it could be your brain function, how you think. That's really what our society kind of influenced that. I wanna get to that. Like, society itself has a big part in natural selection as it pertains to humans, because as arrogant as it sounds, we kind of are the smartest thing on the planet, to my knowledge. Like, I used to always think, like, how humans gonna say we the most intelligent life form on the planet, and these whales is out here communicating with sonar. It's like, well, we figured out how to do that too. I don't see whales talking to each other. We're talking to people, but whatever. kind of, like, man has come so far that we can kind of battle with certain parts of nature that other organisms on the planet just aren't equipped to do in the way that we are. So when I say society has an effect on natural selection, it's like we made it to where our brains are probably the most important factor in surviving, as opposed to just physical inheritable traits. Because it's like you could be born giant and I could just so happen to make enough money to buy a gun, and now your huge size advantage doesn't mean much because I can blow you away. But so even with the basketball stuff too, I was looking at it there, and I learned something, because I used to, before this past week, referring to natural selection, I would say something like social Darwinism. I would be saying that to people, and then of course a lot of people I know ain't as familiar, so no one ever corrected me. Charles Darwin is not the father of social Darwinism. You know, that's a guy named Herbert Spencer. Now, social Darwinism is pretty much the idea that natural selection is true, but they kind of freaked it to a way that benefits like rich or the elite, saying pretty much like the state shouldn't intervene in matters of people. Pretty much where if I got money, I can do whatever the hell I want, because, well, the reason I have this is because I'm better than you. That is not true. But the theory of social Darwinism, I do agree with, until you get to that little point. That felt like somebody was on the right track, but then they freaked it to benefit them, as opposed to staying on track with where they were going with it. See, because to me, social Darwinism, it very well would be true. Where it's like, the people who have for a reason, but when you say the state can't intervene because people are supposed to be people, like pretty much people should handle people shit, that's where you lost me. Because what the fuck is the state? What is government? You know, that's a group of people. So if people are supposed to handle people's shit, you can't have a government without people. So if the government or the state or whatever intervenes in something, that's people. So it all goes hand in hand. Survival of the fittest, and maybe being one of the fittest entails joining a group. You know, like being in a group of people turns this organism, because this group is an organism, it turns that into a more fit organism. So it's fit to survive as long as this group is cohesive. So, I don't know, man. Maybe one day I'll get some credit for freaking social Darwinism and making it less, because more recently it's a dismissed topic. People are like, that's bullshit. Because they were using it pretty much to promote racism. They were using it to defend it. You know, defend racism, imperialism, all that shit. Where really it's like, if the state intervenes, they're doing it on behalf of people, because obviously it's beneficial to keep this group of people happy. Because if they don't, what could this group band together and do? You know, that's part of survival of the fittest, man. It's natural selection is true, and the statement survival of the fittest is true. But it's true because it's true on all levels. When you really look at it and you break it down, and not just in a way that benefits you. When you look at the grand scheme of things, to say like, oh, the state can't intervening stuff. Like, so pretty much since I'm rich, I can come over here and knock poor Joe over the head and take his shit because I'm better. Natural selection. Natural selection told me to do that. Okay, but then what happens when it works the other way around? And poor Joe's like, I ain't got shit to lose, and he comes and knocks me over the head and takes my shit. Now he can be rich because he just came and took all my money. See, they freaked it. I get it, but back to what I was saying. So, I was watching the kids play basketball, and this is how my brain works. Like, I'm watching these kids play basketball, and it turns into a whole science lesson in my head. So, pretty much, oh yeah, I was saying that natural selection was a theory by Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, I'm a big fan of it. Because it's true, man. When you find something that's true, it's true. And that's pretty much, inheritable traits that you may get or an organism get that makes them able to adapt and survive. So, look, I'm getting myself jumbled up here. So, pretty much, when I was watching like LeBron's son and Carmelo's son, I'm looking like what would make these kids the fittest, and why, and looking at the differences in their environments. Where you had Carmelo's son, it seemed like a more relaxed environment. He ends up in places with not so many cameras like LeBron's son. I felt bad for LeBron's son, man. In all honesty, I felt bad for him. And it's not like he needs me to feel bad for him, because the kid can play basketball. I end up doing some more watching just to see, like, man, is this kid even any good? His environment is different. His situation is different than other children. So I would think maybe some traits that would make him the fittest would definitely be tough skin. And that's not in a physical sense, but tough skin in a mental sense. Because it's like, dude, every move you make is under a microscope. like, so if you miss a buzzer beater as a senior in high school, people are looking at that different than if my son goes and misses a buzzer beater. That's going to be limited to his area because I'm not LeBron. Now, LeBron's son misses the buzzer beater as a senior in the championship game. The whole country's looking at it just because he's LeBron's son. His environment is different. It's different than a lot of kids, especially when you decide that's what you want to do. Then you look at one like Carmelo's son, where it's like, yeah, your dad's a famous basketball player, and at one point he was arguably one of the best players in the league. But at his current status, his son, you're not really looking as tough at him as you are at Bronny. What traits could help him be the fittest? His really, just that ability to play basketball. Whereas LeBron's son has to have the ability to play basketball and the mental toughness to deal with everyone else that's watching you play basketball and kind of scrutinizing your whole existence. It's funny just to look at that, and I'm like, okay, what happened to Jordan's sons, and why is Dell Curry's sons all in the league? And I don't think any of Jordan's sons made it. Well, how could that happen? And what I came up with is his sons, Jordan's sons, were not the fittest for that situation. So their basketball careers kind of, or should I say NBA dreams, died because theirs weren't the fittest. They weren't the fittest for that. And it could have been a combination of things. One, the lack of ability to play basketball. Two, the lack of desire to play basketball. Three, not enough mental toughness to deal with the pressure of trying to play basketball as Michael Jordan's son. Like, just imagine that. Trying to play basketball as Michael Jordan's son. That pressure has to be crazy. Like, that pressure has to be crazy. And even and then you look at Dell Curry's sons, where it's like that pressure was not as intense. Like, now I'm sure there was pressure because your father was an NBA player. So I'm sure there's some pressure. It's not to say that these other kids outside of LeBron's and Jordan's sons don't have any pressure. But it's like, it's gotta be different. It's gotta be different. Because just me sitting here judging these kids playing basketball, I know I'm not the only one. And it's an easy... And then I've heard people talking, it's easy to be unfair, but life's not fair, the survival of the fittest. So, yeah, Dell Curry's sons, they got to just focus on playing the game. And maybe the mental toughness wasn't as necessary. It's always going to be necessary to compete. And so you got to be mentally tough to compete at the highest level of something. And really, I want to just make that a testament to Steph Curry's mental toughness, because it's like, I'm going to be better than my dad and my brothers. That guy's amazing. So, shout out to Steph. But then I got to comparing Michael Jordan and LeBron, where it's like, okay, these two are arguably the best two players to ever play. How were they both able to get there? And that's like, well, they must have had similar paths. And then it's like, nah, not really. Because you look at Jordan was, he was sought after. Well, he went to college. He did his time in college. And then he made himself into a high draft pick. Where LeBron, it's like, you're a high schooler, and they're like, you're the future. We expect you to be great. Go out there and be great. And then, to actually step up and serve that, I can do that. And actually go do it, and everybody's looking at you like, come on, King James, what are you going to do? That guy's mental fortitude is definitely top level. And so is Jordan's. Is Jordan, ultimate competitor. I know I used a lot of basketball here. It's playoff time, so that's fresh on my brain. But really, survival of the fittest goes anywhere you want to put it. Goes anywhere you want to put it. And it's based off of natural selection. Like, okay, we'll just go to a regular people. Just a people thing. Okay, survival of the fittest. Hell, we'll take it from caveman times to now. Okay, so you got early humans where it's like, okay, survival of the fittest. What would make you the fittest? Back then, probably size, strength, and immune system. Where it's like, well, I can't even separate it because it's all the same. So just with humans, your physical attributes can be a key to it. Immune system, pretty much your bodily functions, your internal functions. Because who cares? You could be big, strong, but if you catch a cold and die, you weren't the fittest, Or even that, I'll just leave it there because look, I can go off on a tangent here. Gotta catch myself. And the brain function, man. I believe that the brain function is the most important because your brain helps you operate. It helps you come up with new stuff, and it also helps you deal with other people. Cause that's what I was getting at before. Society's effect on natural selection and survival of the fittest, because our society actually it's our environment. So our environment dictates what traits are the fittest. If you can't function within our society, you're probably not gonna make it. Unless you go live out in the woods, and you're still gonna deal with people. That at some point, it's still gonna be that way. So society's effect on it, you learn how to function in it. Where I believe like our current society, like the base of it, was probably made by some little weak motherfucker. They like, man, this shit ain't fair. This giant keeps coming and taking my shit. And so people like I believe are like weaker people who are maybe just fit enough to survive the elements. And they're like, okay, we need to make this playing field more level. We can do that as a group. If you got a group of weak people, they can equal this giant motherfucker. So I look at society, and it's like, okay, society is really here to protect the weak. It's not here to protect the strong. It benefits, but really, it keeps the weak okay. It keeps the weak in the game. Not saying that, like, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it in a shit. Whoever came up with it was actually more fit to survive than maybe initially given credit for. Like, okay, say, and I'm really just guessing here. I say it's some weak, physically weak person. You were fit enough mentally to come up with an idea to protect yourself. Or like the person who made the gun. I don't know who made it, and I didn't look the shit up. But if I had to guess, it's not some giant warrior that's like, hey, I don't have any trouble out here on the battlefield. It's probably one that was like somebody who didn't want to get their ass kicked. But it's like, man, I gotta survive, but how am I gonna do that? I'm not physically imposing or anything like that. So I say that to say society I feel like our society, be it unfair and harsh at times, it actually made it easier for more people to be considered the fittest and to overall survive. And look, though, just listening to this whole thing, like this is how I sit around and think. So I start off watching some high schoolers play basketball, and then I'm like, I go through everything I learned in science class as a middle schooler. And then I come and try to remember everything I thought of and say it back to y'all. Yeah. Last week I had mentioned changing my schedule around so that way I could pod and not have to miss a week. This week that's exactly what happened. Yesterday, which was my normal pod day, I was busy. And it don't matter. Because now I'm here Monday, podding, do this. I'm going to take my ass to the gym right after this. I get to do everything. So people, make time for what you want to do. It's imperative to getting it done. And I think it's good for my psyche because I feel great right now. But I'm going to go ahead and get off of this because, well, I said what I had to say. Survival of the fittest is real. Use your strengths to your advantage. If you're mentally tough, get out there and try more shit. You can deal with that failure if it comes and then just use it as a lesson. If you're physically imposing, go play sports and fight or something. Like you'd probably be good at. But nah, it's pretty much, it's a good philosophy that I believe it. I think I'm gonna go study social Darwinism, man, and I don't know how to say I come up with a better way of it. I don't know how to get that recognized. That's something for me to figure out. But so I'm gonna get on out of here with that. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, it's the Crosscast. Man, Cleveland homes will be professional. Showtime if you nasty. Catch y'all next trip. Y'all be good.